So watch. Remember those numbers? Now watch this. And there you go. Wow. So Sanders on the second allocation continues to lead much tighter. So how does Sanders lead in the state delegate equivalent? How does Buttigieg lead in the state delegate equivalent if he's not leading on the second allocation? It gets into, and I got to take a look here very closely, but my theory.
I understand why maybe raw preference numbers can't be altered, but if there are mathematical rounding errors, why can't those be adjusted?
Because these sheets are signed not only by the precinct chair and the precinct secretary.
Anderson just won New Hampshire.
Woo!
Oh my God! Early results, 0% in.
We know that Pete has concentrated his energies in that state, but when you look at the diverse demographics that actually comprise the base of the Democratic Party, you see that Bernie Sanders is much, much stronger there. And up until this point, the only person that has been at all competitive with non-white voters, other than Bernie Sanders, is Joe Biden.
We know that, Simone. Do you believe we understand? Do you believe the data is correct?
People were waiting for 2 hours.
Why can't you say if the data is correct or incorrect?
To the Iowa Democratic Party headquarters, they were unable to get that data in there. So what I'm saying is the foundation of this process, the presidential preference cards.
I think most Americans would be happy to have a public option and have Medicare followed through with. But I don't want to get into I'm on every night. I'll let the Democrats figure this out. I have my own views of the word socialist, and I'll be glad to share them with you in private. And they go back to the early 1950s. I have an attitude about them. I remember the Cold War. I have an attitude towards Castro. I believe if Castro and the Reds had won the Cold War, there would have been executions in Central Park, and I might have been one of the ones getting executed. And certain other people would be there cheering, okay? So I have a problem with people who took the other side. I don't know who Bernie supports over these years. I don't know what he means by social. 1 week it's Denmark. We're going to be like Denmark. Okay, that's harmless. That's basically a capitalist country with a lot of good social welfare programs. Denmark is harmless.
He's pretty clearly in the Denmark category, yeah.
Are you sure? How do you know? Did he tell you that?
Well, I mean, that's what he says, and that's what his agenda calls for, right?
Yeah.
He's not calling for any...
Let's see. Let's figure that one out.
Stop.
Mayor Pete, come out and debate me. Please stop using boot edge. Yes, sir. It's a sidewalk. They should be on the sidewalk. Boot head. Boot head. I'm Vermin Supreme, and my answer to the climate crisis is, has, and always will be weather domes. Thank you. Yay! Weather domes. Boot head!
Hi, my name is Madison, and I'm an econ student at Mercer University. And, oh, awesome. So I'm going to be a little bit mean for a second, okay? So, so you're arguably the candidate with the greatest advantage in this race. You've been the vice president. You weren't burdened down by the impeachment trials. So, in the participation. So how do you explain the performance in Iowa, and why should the voters believe that you can win the national election?
It's a good question. Number one, Iowa's a Democratic caucus. You ever been to a caucus? No, you haven't. You're a lying dog-faced pony soldier. You said you were, but you're...
I think common sense suggests that when you take money and you're dependent on billionaires, you're not going to stand up to them. You're not going to effectively represent working families.
And what we have in common is that we catching hell. Working class people across this country are catching hell. And if you are black, you catching more hell. If you are brown, more hell. Indigenous, more hell. But the bottom line, we catching hell. So yes, it is the elites of both parties versus everyday people in this nation.
Something that Jonathan last put in the bulwark today, and it was about how in Ruth we've all been on the receiving end of the Bernie online brigade. And here's what he says. He says, no other candidate has anything like this sort of digital brown shirt brigade. I mean, except for Donald Trump. I know everybody's freaking out about this, but you saw the MAGA rally that's preparing around here. There are people coming from 3 or 4 states on that. That's real, and this is like Bernie.
CNN has a major projection right now. CNN projects that Bernie Sanders will win New Hampshire Democratic.
Fucking did it.
Decision desk. Decision desk is in with the call.
If a quote-unquote Biden-style candidate won several of the first states, everyone would say, great, let's wrap this up.
If Bernie Sanders does, suddenly there's this attitude of, well, maybe that's not good enough. Well, what is that?
Just continues to rack up these big numbers, these big margins. And he's doing stuff that we don't talk about enough. He's appealing to young people and people of color, increasingly, and women, and the beer track voters that people talk about for Biden. They're showing up for Bernie Sanders. He's got an army of unbelievable donors. If anybody else had all that, we'd be saying, this guy's our guy. For whatever reason, we continue to talk about everybody but Bernie Sanders.
I don't understand how Bernie is considered a front-runner.
Anyone else in the race that you were ever interested in?
No. We can't just run against Trump. We have to run against the reasons that got him elected, that he's a symptom of a disease that's been building up in our communities for years.
The bourgeoisie control the government. We need to take them down. And I understand that Bernie Sanders is a bourgeois politician, but we have to start somewhere.
I was a prosecutor as well. I've reviewed the facts of that case, and it is one of the most flawed investigations and prosecutions that I think I have ever seen.
I have always believed that a job of a prosecutor is to protect the innocent and convict the guilty, but protect the innocent has to be key. So this case involved an 11-year-old African-American girl who was shot doing her homework at her kitchen table.
You're a U.S. Senator now. You're a powerful woman. What do you intend to do to right this wrong?
So there are things we can and should do right away. They can deal with black money, dark money, or African-American money. I'm always happy to take black money contributions in my campaign. Thank you so much for the chance to join you. Gracias por invitarnos para hablar this evening. And I bring greetings from South Bend. Not quite sleeping enough, but delighted to be with you. Good afternoon, Nevada Black Caucus. Thank you so much for having me with you.
James Carville, who's obviously a longtime Clinton loyalist, was supporting Senator Michael Bennet, who obviously dropped out of the primary race last night. He said this week that core Democratic voters aren't interested in being in what he said a cult. He said they're not interested in socialism and revolution and other things he called foolishness, and that, quote, I don't know how you win an election, 78 years old, screaming in a microphone about the revolution. I don't know if he was actually screaming at the time, although it's very possible, knowing James. But so I want to give you a chance to respond.
Look, James, in all due respect, is a political hack who said very terrible things when he was working for Clinton against Barack Obama. I think he said some of the same things. Medicare for all was one of the reasons we won in New Hampshire. It is very popular in New Hampshire, and I suspect among Democrats all over this country.
I mean, wow, what a day. It's one of the most incredible things I've ever seen to see. They said that plane's 800 feet above the racetrack right now. What an entrance by the President of the United States.
He's the Grand Marshal. He'll give the command. Presidents, of course, have attended NASCAR races, Daytona before, but again, the first to give the command.
As far as Michael Bloomberg is concerned, I think that his involvement in this campaign will be a positive one.
Hey, Mike, say stop and frisk. Racist piece of shit.
For all the cops in the minority neighborhoods. Yes, that's true. Why we do it? Because that's where all the crime is. And the way you get the guns out of the kids' hands is to throw them against the wall and frisk them.
Nira, very quick, how much will some Democrats feel hesitant to go after Bloomberg because he is such an important donor?
No, I don't think so. I think people will be as critical.
You don't think some interest groups? I mean, does he have an endorsement from anybody that he hasn't given money to?
I mean, I hope they actually do what they promised to do. Are they going to go after him about the bad behavior of Bernie's supporters or not? Is this how they do things in Denmark? I mean, this is a preview of coming attractions, these people.
Recent weeks, trolling Senator Elizabeth Warren as a snake, and in post after post, labeling Mayor Pete Buttigieg a rat.
Two victims of this tell CNN they were so afraid of the online attacks they faced, they don't even want us to describe the circumstances for fear it would start up again. They both just questioned the politics of Bernie Sanders in a public setting, and their personal lives were exposed and attacked.
All right. So, yes, I want to have this campaign focus on the important issues facing the American people. I've just said a moment ago, as I've said many times, I'm going to support, if I don't win this thing, I'm going to support somebody else who wins it. All right, and I don't want to see terrible personal attacks. We can disagree on the issues, not personal attacks, but that is not just my campaign. For years, we have loved Saudi Arabia, our wonderful ally. Only problem is the people who run that country are murderous thugs. All right? We have a cruel and dysfunctional system. We are now spending twice as much as the people of any other country, $11,000 every man, woman, and child. And as a union man, you understand that when unions negotiate, what is the major issue that's up for negotiation? Whether or not they're going to take back some of the health care benefits. You want a 3% raise? Okay, we're going to cut your health care. And you know what else? We're going to cover home health care so that people will not be forced out of their homes unnecessarily into a nursing home. And I think after 100 years of talk about guaranteeing health care for all, maybe the time is now to take on the drug companies, take on the insurance companies, and finally do what the American people want.
And when you've got a mess and you really need it cleaned up, call a woman to get the job done.
What you need is the demonstrated ability to build that kind of broad-based coalition that can match his enthusiasm, crowd size, volunteer effort, because certainly you're not going to do it just by trying to buy your way out of an election. And we're seeing all kinds of people, including important politicians in South Carolina, defecting from Joe Biden's campaign to ours because they see our message resonating more with their diverse constituencies.
The candidates will get 1:15 to answer each question and 45 seconds for follow-ups. Now that the stage is narrowed to 6 candidates, we encourage each of you to directly engage with each other on the issues.
I actually welcomed Mayor Bloomberg to the stage. I thought that he shouldn't be hiding behind his TV ads, and so I was all ready for this big day. And then I looked at the memo from his campaign staff this morning, and it said that he actually thought that 3 of us should get out of the way. That is what his campaign said, because we should pave the way for him to become the nominee.
Obama, let's put forward somebody who's actually a Democrat. Look, we shouldn't have to choose between one candidate who wants to burn this party down and another candidate who wants to buy this party out. Look, we can do better.
Senator, we are giving a voice to people who are saying we are sick and tired of billionaires like Mr. Bloomberg seeing huge expansions of their wealth while 500,000 people sleep out on the street tonight.
And that's
so what we are saying, Pete, is maybe it's a time for the working class of this country to have a little bit of power in Washington rather than your billionaire campaign contributors.
All right, look, first of all,
I know. It's okay, bro. Look, we have over 10.6 million people on Twitter, and 99.9% of them are decent human beings, are working people, are people who believe in justice, compassion, and love.
Why did this pattern arise? Why is it especially the case among your supporters?
I don't think it is especially the case, by the way.
That's just not true. Look,
well,
people know.
Pete, if you want to talk to some of the women on my campaign, what you will see is the most ugly, sexist, racist attacks that are, I won't even describe them here. We're going
to need a president, not just a candidate who can win,
I have
but
an
a
idea
president
of how
who can
we
move
can
us forward.
Stop sexism on the internet. We could nominate a woman for candidate for president of the United States.
And yet today, despite spending twice as much per capita, Chuck, twice as much.
My campaign is fueled by hundreds of thousands of contributors,
including 46 billionaires.
War with the Culinary Union right here in Las Vegas.
More union support than you have ever dreamed of. We have the support of unions all across this country.
But the vision I'm putting forward has the support of the American people.
Really? When Mayor Bloomberg was busy blaming African Americans and Latinos for the housing crash of 2008.
And that it goes too far. Are they right?
No. Let me be very clear to my good friends in the Culinary Workers Union, a great union. I will never sign a bill that will reduce the health care benefits they have. We will only expand it for them, for every union in America, and for the working class of this country.
Senator Warren, you
Instead, his campaign relentlessly attacks everyone who asks a question or tries to fill in details about how to actually make this work. And then his own advisors say, probably won't happen anyway. Look, health care is a crisis in this country.
Mayor Buttigieg, I think she name-checked you first. I'll let you go first.
You name-checked me second.
Yes, okay. I think Amy said.
I'm more of a Microsoft Word guy. And if you look at my plan, I don't know if there are any PowerPoints on it, but you can definitely find the document on just so long as we don't force it on anybody. What is wrong with that?
All right,
Can I respond to that?
Let me go to Senator Klobuchar, and then I'll have you respond.
Okay.
All right, Senator Klobuchar. Well, I think the Post-it note came first, Senator. I don't know. I do think the Post-it note came first.
I must say I take personal offense since Post-it notes were invented in my state.
She 3M us. 3M.
Okay. So you don't blow up a bridge, you build one. And so we need to improve the Affordable Care Act, not blow it up.
Let me just. I will. You name-check 3 of them. Let me get Senator Sanders in there. You were.
Okay.
Go ahead, Senator Sanders. Okay. We'll get you in, Miss.
All right.
We got a lot of people in here that we got hit.
It's my turn, yeah?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Somehow or another, Canada can provide universal health care to all their people at half the cost. UK can do it, France can do it, Germany can do it, all of Europe can do it. Gee whiz, somehow or another, we are the only major country on earth that can't do it. Why is that? And I'll tell you why. The function of a rational healthcare system is not to make the pharmaceutical industry and the drug companies rich. it is to provide health care to all people as a human right, not a privilege.
Mr. Vice President,
no premiums, no
Mr. Vice President,
no deductibles.
You know, from the moment we passed that signature legislation, Mike called it a disgrace, number one. Number two, Trump decided to get rid of it. And number three, my friends here came up with another plan. But they don't tell you.
Go ahead, Senator Warren.
So I actually took a look. Amy, I looked online at your plan. It's 2 paragraphs. Families are suffering, and they need a plan. You can't simply stand here and trash an idea to give health care coverage to everyone right here in Nevada.
My plan takes care of that.
Struggling. They share one insulin prescription.
Facts are, I was there. Let me finish. Thank you. Thought it didn't go as far as we should.
The mayor said when we passed it, the signature piece of this administration, it's a disgrace. They're the exact words. It was a disgrace. Look it up. Check it out. Okay. It was a disgrace.
Thank you.
I cover, by the way, that plan. You do not have surprise billing. You bring down drug prices. People are not, it gives people all the things we're just talking about. I guess you're not got enough time to do it, but I'll get a chance to talk about it.
Thank you, sir. Lester?
All right, Mayor Bloomberg, at the beginning of this debate, you took some.
Really worried about, embarrassed about, was how it turned out with stop and frisk.
Because Barack Obama sent moderators to see what was going on.
No, this isn't about how it turned out. This is about what it was designed to do to begin with.
The one area maybe that Mayor Bloomberg and I share, you have 2 stints as well. All right.
25 years ago.
Hey, follow me around the campaign trail, 3, 4, 5 events a day. See how you're doing compared to me.
Look, first of all, let me say we're all delighted that you are in fighting shape. And come to level with the American people on matters personal and on matters of policy.
Thank you, Senator Sanders. Quickly.
Okay. Let's level. All right, let's level, Pete. Under your plan, which is a maintenance continuation of the status quo, can I finish? The average American today is paying $12,000 a year. That's what that family is paying. 20% of a $60,000 income is Medicare for All will save $450 billion a year. Because we are eliminating the absurdity of thousands of separate plans that require hundreds of billions of dollars of administration. And by the way, ending the $100 billion a year in profiteering from the drug companies and the insurance companies.
This is really important. My plan is the status quo, and that's false.
But people are already voting now. Why should Democratic voters have to wait?
It just takes us a long time. Unfortunately or fortunately.
Could I comment on that?
Fortunately, I make a lot of money, and we do business all around the world, and we are preparing it. The number of pages will probably be in thousands of pages. I can't go to TurboTax, but I put out my tax return every year for 12 years in City Hall. We will put out this one. It tells everybody everything they need to know about every investments that I make, and we do
That's
not.
right. We have engaging with voters.
We're getting there.
Let me ask you about something else, Mr. Mayor, because Mayor Bloomberg, let me ask you about something else.
And get it done.
Senator Warren.
I wish it were that simple.
Mayor, I'll let you get in here, but Mayor
It would
Bloomberg,
save me a lot of money.
we're confronted about it. You admitted making sexually suggestive remarks, saying, quote, "That's the way I grew up." One former female employee alleged that you said, quote, "I would do you in a second." Should Democrats expect better from their nominee?
Let me say a couple things, and if I can have my full minute and a quarter, thank you. Non-disclosure agreements.
How many is
Let me
that?
finish.
How many is that?
None of them accuse me of doing anything other than maybe they didn't like the joke I told. And let me put, there's agreements between two parties that wanted to keep it quiet, and that's up to them. They signed those agreements, and we'll live with it.
So wait, when you say it is up to, I just want to be clear. Some is how many? If they wish now to speak out and tell their side of the story about what it is they allege, that's now okay with you? You're releasing them on television tonight?
Senator? No.
Is that right?
Senator,
tonight?
Senator, the company and somebody else, in this case, a man or a woman, or could be more than that, they decided when they made an agreement that they wanted to keep it quiet for everybody's interest. They signed the agreements, and that's what we're going to live with.
It's easy. All the mayor has to do is say, you are released from the non-disclosure agreement. Period. We talk about transparency here. This guy got himself in trouble, maybe saying that he couldn't disclose what he did. He went to his company.
Just to be super clear, that was about the list of clients.
No, nobody gets the wrong
I know what you mean. No, you're right.
But he said, he went to the company and said, I want to be released. I want to be able to do it. Look, this is about transparency. That's not how it works. The way it works is they say, look, this is what you did to me, and the mayor comes along and his attorney say, I will give you this amount of money if you promise you'll never say anything. That's how it works.
Mayor Bloomberg, final word to you.
I've said we're not going to get to end these agreements because they were made consensually, and they have every right to expect that they will stay private.
If they want to release it, they should be able to release themselves.
Can I add a word to this?
Say yes.
You know, we talk about electability, and everybody up here wants to beat Trump. And we talked about stop and frisk, and we talked about the workplace that Mayor Bloomberg has established and the problems there. But maybe we should also ask how Mayor Bloomberg in 2004 supported George W. Bush for president, put money into Republican candidates for the United States Senate when some of us, Joe and I and others, were fighting for Democrats to control the United States Senate. And maybe we can talk about a billionaire saying that we should not raise the minimum wage, or that we should cut Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid. If that's a way to beat Donald Trump, wow, I would be very surprised.
Thank you, Senator. Vanessa, to you.
Wait.
I'm Michael Bloomberg, and I'm running for president because I can. Why? Because I have $50 billion. So running for president to me is almost like going out and buying some ice cream. Oh, what do you know? Ice cream. That's the kind of thing that people who don't pay much attention to politics think is kind of cool when the guy who invented the stop and frisk policy in New York City is trying to buy an election. I'm Mike Bloomberg, and I'm buying this ad spot in the middle of this other ad just to let you know the scale at which I am able to buy this election. It actually confuses you. It ruins the last ad to have this ad bought in the middle of the former ad that still got. I'm Michael Bloomberg. Gratuitously, I'm adding an ad within the ad to the other ad. Why? To show you that I can throw money around like it's on fire. I'm Michael Bloomberg, and this is an ad within an ad that's within an ad, and I think that might even be within another ad. I can't even keep count. We are 4 levels down. I'm buying ad space inside of my own ad space. Why? Because I want you to wake up thinking Michael Bloomberg. Hey, Mike, I'll take over from here. That's Mike Bloomberg, and I'm Mike Bloomberg, and resistance is futile. I'm Michael Bloomberg, and I'm buying this election. I want you to start your day, even with the television off, knowing that you're probably incidentally going to hear a Michael Bloomberg ad sometime during the day. I'm Michael Bloomberg. Fuck you. Fuck all of you. Buying the election, and we're buying ad time, even on our own ads. I'm Mike Bloomberg, and this is how the nightmare begins. I'm Michael Bloomberg. You're back at the original ad. If you're thinking, I don't support Michael Bloomberg, that's what everybody's thinking. But let me tell you something. Nobody supports Michael Bloomberg. And yet all these people are working on my commercials. Why? Because I have that much money to throw at them. You might think I will make a terrible president and that someday there's going to be robot dog police and stop and frisk across this fucking country and drone strikes domestically to anybody who pipes up the way Occupy Wall Street did. And you know what? You're right. And that's why I'm running for president, because there's no way to stop me. Yummy. I'm Michael Bloomberg, and I approve this message.
Senator Klobuchar, you're running on your Washington experience, but last week in a Telemundo interview, you could not name the president of Mexico or discuss any of his policies.
Specifically his politics, what he's doing, since this would be the country you would share a border with. Anything you can tell me about him?
I know that they are neighbors, and regardless of who the leader is, that it is someone that I will work with.
Do you? I'm sorry to ask this, but do you know who he is? Do you know his name?
Yeah. I know that he is the Mexican president.
But can you tell me his name?
No. So.
Don't you think it would be important, if you're running for president, to know who the president of Mexico, the country to the south of the United States, is?
Yes.
Because it affects so many Americans. Is there anything specifically you can tell me that you do know about Andrés Manuel López Obrador or what he's doing in Mexico that has a direct effect on all of our border communities?
Well, what I do know is that we have had issues, of course, with asylum and people coming up. I actually visited Mexico under the previous president, yes. And went there and led a delegation there to work on human trafficking. And I met with the Attorney General at the time, and we had a very positive meeting. So I didn't meet with the president, I met with the Attorney General.
Okay.
And then I also...
And I first want to say greetings to President López Obrador. Secondly, what I meant by the game of Jeopardy is that I think we could all come up with things.
The president of Mexico, and your response was no.
Yes, that's right. A president that maybe is humble and is able to admit that here and there, maybe wouldn't be a bad thing.
Mayor Buttigieg,
if you could let me,
a good response.
If you could,
yeah, look, I wouldn't liken this to trivial. I actually didn't know how many members were in the Knesset, so
well,
you got me there.
Go.
But you're staking your candidacy on your Washington experience. You're on the committee that oversees border security. You're on the committee that does trade. You're literally in part of the committee that's overseeing these things, and we're not able to speak to literally the first thing about the politics of the country to ourselves.
Are you trying to say that I'm dumb, or are you mocking me here, Pete?
I'm saying that you shouldn't trivialize that
I made an
knowledge.
error. People sometimes forget names. I am the one that has, number one, has the experience based on passing over 100 bills. If I could respond, this was a pretty big allegation. He's basically saying that I don't have the experience to be president of the United States. I am the one, not you, that has won statewide in congressional district after congressional district. And I will say, when you tried in Indiana, Pete, to run, what happened to you? You lost by over 20 points to someone who later lost to my friend Joe Donnelly. So don't tell me about experience.
If winning a race for Senate in Minnesota translated directly to becoming president, I would have grown up under the presidency of Walter Mondale. Votes in the Senate in Washington, let's talk about it.
Let's talk about a major policy.
Next question is next question. Hello. Thank you. Senator Warren and Mayor Bloomberg, this question is for you. I want to talk about, and maybe this is appropriate here.
Can I just defend Senator Klobuchar for a minute? Name all by itself does not indicate that you do not understand what's going on. And I just think this is unfair.
Senator Warren, you're right. Senator Warren, you're right. But Senator Klobuchar could not discuss Mexican policy
Fair
either.
enough. I'm the only one who knows this man and met with him.
I do have to respond. invoke my name again, and I ask you to look at the interview I did directly after the forum, which we went into great detail on Latin American policy. And I want to say one thing about Mayor Pete, where we just disagree. He was asked on a debate stage about the Mexican cartels, which are bad criminal organizations. He said that he would be open to classifying them as terrorist organizations. I actually don't agree with that. That is a very valid debate to have. I don't think that would be good for our security coordination with Mexico, and I think you got that wrong.
Well,
I've spent more time in Mexico than anybody. Can I get a chance to say something?
Hold on.
Vice President.
See, thank you. Look, I'm the only one who spent extensive hundreds of hours in Latin America. I've met with this president. I've met with the last president, the one before that. I've been deeply involved in making sure that we have a policy that makes more sense than this god-awful president we have now.
Joe said it right. This is an existential threat. You know what that means, Chuck? That means we're fighting for the future of this planet. And the Green New Deal that I support, by the way, will create up to 20 million good-paying jobs as we move our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy.
Not $15 an hour, but $50 an hour plus benefits. Unions being able to do that. And what it does is it will change the nature. Look, here's the last point I want. My time's going to run out. Here's the last point I want to make to you.
I'm a little skeptical of the idea that convincing is going to do the trick when it comes to working with China. America has repeatedly overestimated our ability to shape Chinese ambitions. But what we can do is ensure that we use the hard tools
where we can significantly increase the amount of money available so people can borrow the money to get started. They have demonstrated they're incredibly successful. We should not be raising taxes on them. We should start be rewarding work, not just wealth. That's why we have to change the tax code the way it is. That's why the wealthy have to start to pay their fair share. And that's why we have to focus on giving people the ability to garner wealth, generate wealth.
The financial crisis came about because the people that took the mortgages packaged them and other people bought them. That was where all the disaster was. Redlining is still a practice some places, and we've got to cut it out. But it's just not true. What I was going to say, we maybe want to talk about businesses. I'm the only one here that I think that's ever started a business. Is that fair? Okay. What we need is...
Senator Sanders, 45 seconds.
Just, all right. You know, when we talk about a corrupt political system bought by billionaires like Mr. Bloomberg, it manifests itself in a tax code in which not only is Amazon and many other major corporations, some owned by the wealthiest people in this country, not paying a nickel in taxes, we have the insane situation that billionaires today, if you can believe it, have an effective tax rate lower than the middle class.
Senator,
so maybe
you're
just
the tax code. Why are you complaining?
What?
You wrote the code.
You did. You and your campaign. Not me. You and your campaign contributions electing people who represent the wealthy and the powerful.
Yes,
those are the folks.
Democrats. Thank you.
Well, and Republicans too.
Okay.
And George W. Bush as well.
Chuck.
Senator Klobuchar, let me address.
I was thinking
I understand
there's
that, but
going to be
Senator
a
Klobuchar,
boxing rematch on Saturday in Vegas, and those guys should go down there.
Senator Klobuchar, I actually want to get you to something about Senator Sanders tweeted last year, billionaires should not exist.
Okay.
What say you?
I believe in capitalism, but I think the goal of someone in government and a president of the United States should be a check on that. I'm not going to limit what people make, but I think right now our tax code is so tilted against regular people, and that is what's wrong.
Mike Bloomberg owns more wealth than the bottom 125 million Americans. That's wrong. That's immoral. That should not be the case when we got 500,000 people sleeping out on the street.
Mayor Bloomberg, should you exist?
I can't speak for all billionaires. All I know is I've been very lucky, made a lot of money, and I'm giving it all away to make this country better. And a good chunk of it goes to the Democratic Party as well.
Is it too much? Have you earned too much money? Has it been an obscene amount of money? Should you have earned that much money?
Yes. I worked very hard for it, and I'm giving it away.
All right. Thank you. Hallie.
Mayor Buttigieg, Senator Sanders.
I think that employee ownership of companies is a great idea. I'm not sure it makes sense to command those companies to do it. We're not even in the top 10. Number one place to live out the American dream right now is Denmark. And as the...
You know what, Mr. Bloomberg, wasn't you who made all that money. Maybe your workers played some role in that as well. They feel like cogs in a machine. I want workers to be able to sit on corporate boards as well, so they can have some say over what happens to their lives.
Mayor Bloomberg, you own a large company. Would you support what Senator Sanders is proposing?
Absolutely not. I can't think of ways that would make it easier for Donald Trump to get reelected than listening to this conversation. It's ridiculous. We're not going to throw out capitalism. We tried that. Other countries tried that. It was called communism, and it just didn't work.
So let me make
This latest NBC News Wall Street Journal poll released yesterday, 2/3 of all voters said they were uncomfortable with a socialist candidate for president. What do you say to those voters, sir?
What was the result of that poll? Who was winning?
The question's to you.
Well, the question was that I was winning, and I think by a fairly comfortable margin. Mike mentioned that. But here is the point. Let's talk about democratic socialism, not communism, Mr. Bloomberg. That's a cheap shot. Let's talk about democratic. Let's talk about what goes on in countries like Denmark, where Pete correctly pointed out they have a much higher quality of life in many respects than we do. What are we talking about? We are living in many ways in a socialist society right now. Problem is, as Dr. Martin Luther King reminded us, we have socialism for the very rich, rugged individualism for the poor.
Wait a second.
Let me finish. When Donald Trump gets $800 million in tax breaks and subsidies to build luxury condominiums, that's socialism for the rich. When Walmart, we have to subsidize Walmart's workers who are on Medicaid and food stamps because the wealthiest family in America pays starvation wages. That's socialism for the rich. I believe in democratic socialism for working people, not billionaires. Health care for all, educational opportunity for all.
Senator, thank you. Mayor Bloomberg, would you like to, the question was about socialism.
What a wonderful country we have. The best-known socialist in the country happens to be a millionaire with 3 houses. What did I miss here?
Well, you'll miss that I work in Washington, House 1.
That's the first problem.
Live in Burlington, House 2.
That's good.
And like thousands of other Vermonters, I do have a summer camp. Forgive me for that. Where is your home? Which tax haven do you have your home?
New York City, thank you very much. And I pay all my taxes. And I'm happy to do it because I get something for it. And let me say, I thought the senator next to me was half right. I agree we should raise taxes on the roll back the tax cuts that the Trump administration put in with through Congress.
We should be rewarding work, not just wealth. And the American people, the middle class is getting killed, and the poor have no way up.
All right. Vice President Biden, thank you. Chuck?
You wrote an award-winning essay. You praised Senator Sanders. You specifically praised him for embracing socialism.
The fact that taxes will go up on anybody making more than $29,000 to fund his health care plan. Although, again, a little bit vague about how the rest of that
You're not being
gap
honest. Premiums would be eliminated.
But you're still raising those taxes, and
but
when
we're
you
saving
do it,
people money because they don't pay any premiums, out-of-pocket expenses, co-payments, or deductibles. They're going to be much better off.
But where's the other $25 trillion supposed to come from? At a certain point, you got to do the math.
Well, we got it all up there on the internet. It's a payroll tax. A payroll tax.
No, but even after the payroll tax, you still have a
because we have a wealth tax. Elizabeth has a good one. Ours is a little bit tougher on Mr. Bloomberg than hers. We're going to raise it in a progressive way, which deals with income and wealth inequality, and make certain, finally, that health care in this country is a human right, not a privilege.
45 seconds. Senator Warren, I'm just going to...
They are worried about gambling on a revolution that won't bring along a majority of this country. Amy and Joe's hearts are in the right place, but we can't be so eager to be liked by Mitch McConnell that we forget how to fight the Republicans. Mayor Buttigieg has been taking money from big donors and changing his positions. So it makes it unclear.
I am willing to work with people and find common ground, and that's what we want in a president, Elizabeth. We don't want someone that looks at just plans.
Senator, thank you. We need to take another break here. We'll return to the Paris, Las Vegas in just a moment.
And so that's number one. Number two, we have to have somebody who understands what it's like for ordinary people. Ordinary people coming up. They have to understand, like my dad made that longest walk up a short flight of stairs, say, I don't have a job, honey. We have to move. You got to move with Grandpa.
Here's what happened. According to the New York Times, the last time that Mitch McConnell was on the ballot, the vice president stood in the Oval Office and said, I hope that Mitch gets reelected so I can keep working with him. Well, Mitch did get reelected. He did not have an epiphany. Instead, he blocked nearly everything that Barack Obama tried to pass.
Did you ever
and
win
he
anything?
stole a Supreme Court seat.
Come on.
From the Democrats, the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau.
Thank you, Senator.
Yeah.
Thank you, Senator. Thank you.
If you're going to run based on your record of voting in Washington, then you have to own those votes, especially when it comes to immigration. You voted to confirm the head of Customs and Border Protection under Trump, who was one of the architects of the family separation policy. You voted to make English the national language. Do you know the message that sends in as multilingual a state as Nevada to immigrants? You have been unusual among Democrats, I think the Democrat among all of the senators running for president, most likely to vote for Donald Trump's judges, who we know are especially hostile to dreamers and to the rights of immigrants, with the message that they were as American as we are. A los soñadores hay que decir que este país es tu país también.
Everyone was as perfect. I wish everyone was as perfect as you, Pete, but let me tell you what it's like to be in the arena. That official that you are referring to was supported by about half the Democrats, including someone in this room. And I will say this. He was highly recommended by the Obama officials. He had made a pretty big allegation against me again, and I think I should have a right to respond.
I'm stating the facts because these are votes that you took, and those votes set you alone among the Democrats running for president. No other is it true or is it false that no other Democrat from the Senate running for president voted that way?
What you've said about the judges are false, and you are forgetting one thing.
I would say anybody who ran for president this cycle, Senator Harris, Senator Booker, saw through this.
If you could let me finish, since I've been in the arena, and you know what? You have not been in the arena doing that work. You've memorized a bunch of talking points and a bunch of things, but I can tell you one thing.
You don't have to be on Capitol Hill for your work to be significant.
Guys,
the arena
we are at the end here. We are at the end here. I got to let that one go. We are less than 2 weeks away from a national primary. And I want to ask all of you this simple question. There's a very good chance none of you are going to have enough delegates to the Democratic National Convention to clinch this nomination. Okay? If that happens, I want all of your opinions on this. Should the person with the most delegates at the end of this primary season be the nominee, even if they are short of a majority? Senator Sanders, I'm going to let you go last here because I know your view on this. So instead, I will start with you, Mayor Bloomberg.
Whatever the rules of the Democratic Party are, they should be followed. And if they have a process, which I believe they do,
I'm trying to do
so
this,
that everybody can.
So you want the convention to work its will?
Yes.
Senator Warren.
But a convention working its will means that people have the delegates that are pledged to them, and they keep those delegates until you come to the convention. All of the people.
All righty. Vice President Biden?
Play by the rules.
Yes or no? Leading person with the delegates, should they be the nominee or not?
No, let the process work its way out.
Mayor Buttigieg?
At risk of sounding a little simplistic, one thing I believe is that in an American presidential election, the person who gets the most votes ought to be the person who wins.
Not necessarily, not till there's a
Senator Klobuchar?
Let the process work.
Senator Sanders?
Well, the process includes 500 superdelegates on the second ballot. So I think that the will of the people should prevail. Yes. Person who has the most votes should become the nominee.
5 no's and a yes.
We are not done yet.
Is bigger than any
Senator
heart that guy has in the White House. I ask you to join me at amyklobuchar.com. MikeBloomberg.com.
Senator, thank you.
Mayor Bloomberg, to you.
Well, you can join me at MikeBloomberg.com too if you want, but I'm not asking for any money. Look, this is a management job.
Nevada, I'm asking for your vote.
I promise you this. Give me a chance. I'll go to the White House and I'll fight for your family.
I'm running because so many people.
Please give us a moment. We'll clear the room and let.
And my dad worked like hell. I learned a lot. I've been knocked down a whole hell of a lot. I know what it's like to be knocked down, but I know you have to get back up. The only person in here has the worst record on immigration is Bernie, because Bernie voted against the 2007 bill. Had, in fact, that immigration bill passed, there would be 6 million members would be now American citizens.
All right. Senator Sanders, you have 1 minute for your closing remarks.
Unfortunately, LULAC, among other groups, Latino groups, saw that bill having provisions akin to slavery, Joe. But the bottom line is all of us are united in defeating the most dangerous president in the modern history of this country. That we agree on. But where we don't agree, I think, is why we are today the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people. Why 3 people own more wealth than the bottom half of America when 500,000 people sleep out on the street. Why hundreds of thousands of bright young kids can't afford to go to college and 45 million remain in student debt. Bottom line here, real change never takes place from the top on down, never takes place from an oligarchy controlled by billionaires. We need to mobilize millions of people to stand up for justice. That's our campaign. Join us at BernieSanders.com. Thank you.
Senator, thank you. Folks, thank you. That concludes tonight's debate. Our thanks to my fellow moderators, to the candidates, and of course to all of you, the audience here and at home. The Nevada caucuses are this Saturday, with the South Carolina primary just 1 week later. Then the big prize, Super Tuesday on March 3rd. We'll be following it all for you. For now, for all of us at NBC News, I'm Lester Holt.
I'm sorry that I told you in my sleep all the girls that I've been seeing. I'm lying to you every other time, and you'll never know when I'm right. How could you do it? What did you think would happen? My friend told my brother, I'm gonna have to cut you down. How could you do it? What did you think would happen? My friend told my brother, I'm gonna have to cut you down.
And now I'm delighted to bring you on some pretty good news. I think all of you know we won the popular vote in Iowa. We won the New Hampshire primary. And according to 3 networks in the AP, we have now won the Nevada caucus.